December 2nd, 2011, San Luis Obispo, California. An elderly man steps out of a Bank of America, baseball cap low, day planner tucked under his arm. 30 yards from the door, the bag in his hand erupts. A burst of red dye blooms into the air. He drops, abandons the cash, and then he does the one thing he has never done in 2 years. He runs, not a stagger, a sprint. The FBI's entire case detonates with that dye, because men in their 70s don't move like that. For 24 months, the most filmed bank robber in Southern California hit 16 banks on payday Fridays. 16 tellers at gunpoint. 16 flawless exits. No witnesses, no car, no voice on any recording. The FBI named him the Geezer Bandit, printed his face on every poster, offered $20,000. They got a fan club instead. But here's what makes this case unbreakable. Every detail on those posters, the gray hair, the stoop, the grandfatherly calm, was authored by the suspect himself. He didn't hide from the cameras. He performed for them. How do you catch a man who only exists for 90 seconds at a time? And what happens when the face on every wanted poster turns out to be a costume? Rewind 2 years and 300 miles to the morning none of this had a name. August 28, 2009. San Diego County. A bank, mid-morning, ordinary in every way. An older gentleman walks in, unremarkable, the sort of man your eyes slide right past. Gray hair, glasses, a patient, grandfatherly calm. He does not cause the exits. He does not pull a weapon at the door. He waits for his turn in line like a customer. When he reaches the counter, he slides across a handwritten note. There is no shouting. There is no voice for any microphone to catch. Inside the day planner under his arm rests a small revolver, a weapon disguised as an appointment book, and the teller understands the arithmetic of the moment instantly. She hands over the cash. He thanks her, perhaps. He turns. He walks out the door and into the rest of his life, and by the time anyone in that building exhales, he is gone. No screech of tires, no witnesses chasing him down, nothing. Notice the discipline underneath it too. He does not snatch and bolt. He waits his turn in line like every other customer, because a man who waits does not register as a threat. And a threat is exactly what tellers, cameras, and silent alarms are trained to flag. He is not avoiding the system. He is reading it correctly and handing it back the shape it already expects to see. And that nothing is its own kind of evidence. Every bank robber needs an exit, and an exit usually means a vehicle. And a vehicle means a license plate, a traffic camera, a witness who caught a color. Investigators are trained to find the car first because the car is where amateurs leave their fingerprints on the world. There is no cars. Whatever this man does in the 90 seconds after he steps out of a bank, he does it invisibly. An invisible exit once is luck, 15 times is a blueprint, and then it happens again. A second bank, a third. The pattern assembles itself robbery by robbery across San Diego County, and the more of it the FBI sees, the more they realize they are not watching a desperate man. They are watching a method he hits on Fridays, payday Fridays, when the cash reserves inside a branch sit at their fattest. He comes in off-peak, when the staff is thin and the lobby is quiet. He never speaks, never raises his voice, never gives a single recording one word of his real voice. He passes a note and lets the paper do the talking, which means there is no accent to trace, no speech pattern to match, no audio at all. He shows the gun but never fires it. He takes what is handed to him and never reaches over the counter himself. Every choice strips away one more thing a detective could use later. You are watching someone who has thought about this longer than the people chasing him. The FBI does what the FBI does with a serial offender. They give him a name, something for the case file, something for the press, something to make a faceless man feel catchable. They call him the Geezer Bandit, and they publish the profile that goes with the name. White male, roughly 6 feet tall, around 190 pounds, gray hair, somewhere between his 60s and his 70s. It is a good profile. It is built from hours of high-resolution footage, from multiple angles, from a dozen clean looks at the man's face. Here is the part nobody flags yet, the part you should hold on to. Every one of those details was handed to them by the suspect himself. The height, the hair, the age, the stoop, the grandfatherly calm. The Bureau did not discover a description. It received one. A nickname is a commitment. From this morning forward, every agent, every tip line, every wanted poster in Southern California is hunting an old man. The institution has just filed its first assumption about who this is, and the man it is hunting is the author of that assumption. There is an old line among the people who profile criminals for a living. We only catch dumb ones. The smart ones, the patient ones, tend to walk between the raindrops for years. The counter climbs, and then the map breaks open. Temecula, Bakersfield. He is not a San Diego problem anymore. How far is this old man willing to drive? And how does a face caught on camera a dozen times tell the FBI absolutely nothing? By 2010, the case stopped being a local nuisance and became a priority. The FBI escalates. They stand up the full apparatus of modern identification and point all of it at one man. A reward climbs to $20,000. Wanted posters go up across counties. Local news runs the surveillance stills on a loop, that calm gray face staring out of every television in Southern California, and the tip lines light up. And then the machine chokes on its own success, because the profile, the very thing meant to find him, contains a flaw so simple it is almost beautiful. Elderly white male, gray hair, glasses, average height, average build. Think about how many men that describe Southern California, hundreds of thousands, 1 million. The disguise has weaponized the single most invisible demographic in America, the man nobody looks at twice, and turned him loose in a region full of his own doppelgangers. So the tips pour in, and every one of them is a different harmless grandfather. The mailman's uncle, a neighbor who seems a little off. The quiet man 2 pews over at church. Mass participation produces mass noise, and the noise buries the signal, if there ever was a signal at all. Each new lead costs the agents hours of legwork and ends, every time, at a baffled senior citizen with an alibi and a right to be left alone. This is the trap inside the profile. The more people who look for an old man, the more old men get reported. And the more old men get reported, the more time bleeds out of the investigation chasing the wrong ones. The reward money, the posters, the news segments, every tool designed to multiply the search instead multiplies the static. The harder the public looks, the blinder the case becomes. A description built to narrow a search has done the opposite. It has turned ordinary retirees across the region into momentary suspects, one tip at a time, and every false alarm costs agent hours the real hunt will never get back. Then the public does something the FBI never planned for. It picks a side, and it is not theirs. A Facebook fan page appears. The likes climb into tens of thousands. Someone prints t-shirts. Geezer Bandit for president. People are, in the middle of an active armed robbery spree, rooting for the robber. A serial bank criminal becomes a folk hero, a mascot, a guy people are quietly, half-jokingly hoping gets away with it. The Bureau is now losing 2 wars at once, the manhunt and the story. For an agency built on the authority of its own seriousness, there is no good way to fight a meme. Every press release lands a little flatter once the suspect has fans. If you are enjoying this one, the kind of story that sounds invented but isn't, take a second to subscribe, because this channel lives in exactly this lane. The cases the system could not close, told straight. But underneath the merchandise and the noise, the FBI is quietly doing something strange. Something they are not advertising. They are called Hollywood. For months, agents work the phones to special effects studios and professional makeup houses, the people who build hyper-realistic old-age masks for film. They are hunting for sales receipts. They are asking who buys a face like this. Because somewhere in those hours of crisp, high-definition footage, something about the skin has started to bother them. The uniformity of it, the way it sits, they already doubt their faces. As early as this, they suspect the geezer might not be a geezer at all. They simply cannot prove it, and so they say nothing. And the posters keep showing an old man because an old man is all they can officially claim. Think about the bind that puts them in. They are running a manhunt built entirely on a description they privately believe is fake. Every poster they print, every tip they take, every hour they spend, reinforces a face they suspect was sculpted in a studio. They cannot retract the profile without admitting they have no idea who they are looking for. So, the lie holds, and the lie was his, and they keep it alive for him, for free, on every wall in Southern California. Every conventional lever has now been pulled. Money, media, manpower, the crowd, and the sum of 2 years of pressure from the most powerful law enforcement agency on Earth is a Facebook page and a novelty shirt. He exists for 90 seconds at a time inside the one room he has rehearsed and they have not. Then came November 10th, 2011. Goleta, robbery 15, 250 miles from where he started, and still, flawless. And the FBI decided, if they cannot find the man, they will betray him. What is the one thing he has never thought of planning for? And is a trap still a trap if the target is the only one who knows the room? To understand what happens next, you have to understand what is hidden inside a stack of bills. A die pack. A wafer-thin device slipped between the bills so it feels like nothing, weighs like nothing, looks like nothing. It sits dormant inside the stack while it is still in the bank. The instant it crosses the door, a transmitter at the threshold arms it. The timer starts. Seconds later, wherever it is, whoever is holding it, detonates in a cloud of red dye and a burst of heat hot enough to ruin everything it touches. The teller's hands are the trigger nobody sees. December 2nd, 2011. San Luis Obispo, Bank of America. Now watch it from her side of the counter. He comes in like he always does. The customer, the patient old man. The note slides across. And inside the day planner, the small revolver levels at her, the way it has leveled at 15 people before her. The threat is explicit, the coldest documented moment in the entire case. And there is nothing stylized about it, nothing folkloric. A human being is being told in writing and at gunpoint exactly what will happen to her if she does not comply. She complies. Of course she complies. She does brave, sensible, terrifying things, and she hands over the bag. There is nothing weak in that compliance. Survival is its own kind of competence, and 90 seconds like these do not stay contained to 90 seconds. And the bag is loaded. He takes it. He turns. He walks out into the sun with a day planner under his arm and a die pack ticking in his hand, and for 30 yards he is still the Geezer Bandit, untouchable, 16 for 16. Then the parking lot blooms red. This is the hook, and now you know what is in the bag. He drops. He scrambles on the pavement, and for the first time in 2 years and 16 robberies, the perfect man leaves things behind. The ruined money, and the day planner. The prop he has carried into every single robbery. The appointment book that hid the gun, sitting in a cloud of dye on the asphalt. He runs, and he is gone. But this time he did not leave with everything. The planner goes into an evidence bag. Suddenly the FBI, after 2 years of chasing vapor, is holding an object. A thing he touched, carried, gripped in 16 banks. They commit publicly to throwing every forensic capability they have at it. Fingerprints, DNA, trace. It gets better. 2 bystanders walked right up to him during the explosion, close enough to see his face, close enough to touch him, and the Bureau launches a public appeal to find its own witnesses, the only people who have ever stood beside the Geezer Bandit in his worst moment. And one of those witnesses reports something nobody has reported in 2 years. A vehicle, a white BMW 5 Series, speeding away from the scene. After 15 robberies and not one car, suddenly the first and only automobile ever tied to this man. For the first time, the story has the shape of every other bank robbery story. A spooked suspect, a mistake, evidence on the ground, a car is peeling out, witnesses who saw it happen. After 2 years of Ghost, the Geezer Bandit finally did the human thing and panicked, leaving traces. For one chapter, the system is winning. They have an object, possibly DNA, possibly witnesses, possibly, finally, a car. This is the strongest the FBI will ever be, the genuine peak of the entire hunt, and it is real, every bit of it. And yet the single most important thing recovered from that parking lot is not in any evidence bag. It is 3 seconds of video, and those 3 seconds do not advance the case. They erase it. Play the sprint again. Slowly. The drop. The scramble. The push off the ground. The acceleration across the asphalt. The FBI's analysts watch it frame by frame, and they put their conclusion on the record. And it is not a hunch. This is not the body of a man in his 60s or 70s. The gait is wrong. The speed is wrong. The explosive recovery off the pavement is the recovery of someone decades younger than the face on every poster. And once that lands, everything the audience has already seen has to be read again, backward. Go back to the stills. That way, too, even quality to the skin that bothered the agents enough to call Hollywood. Look at the hands now, the hands in the footage, and consider the possibility the investigators raised. That they were not his hands at all. That they were prosthetic, sculpted, pulled on like gloves. The mask receipt hunt from 2 years earlier suddenly is not a long shot. It is the whole case. They suspected the face for 2 years and could never confirm it. And the dye that ruined the money may also have destroyed a mask made of the wrong material. A mask too compromised to ever wear again. And then the FBI does something institutions almost never do in public. It surrenders its own profile. The geezer, they concede, may not be a geezer, may not be old. And in a single sentence that quietly demolishes 2 years of wanted posters, an agency spokesperson allows that the suspect could be something else entirely. He could even be a woman. Sit with that. The white male, 6 feet, 190, 60s to 70s, the description that launched 1,000 tips in a fan club and $20,000 in reward money has just been officially downgraded to this. We are no longer certain of his age, his build, his face, or even his sex. 2 years of investigation did not narrow the suspect. It widened him until he could be almost anyone. And every detail that fell away was a detail the man himself had installed. He did not hide from the cameras. He performed for them. He gave the FBI a character, fully costumed, fully aged, and let the most sophisticated identification apparatus on Earth spend 2 years building a case file around a role. So now the forensics will save them. The planner, the DNA, the object he carried into every robbery. The forensics go nowhere. The DNA from the planner never produces a public name. Not that year. Not the next. Years later, a profiler looking back at the case will marvel that with modern genealogy databases, the sky should be the limit, that a sample like that should crack open a family tree and a name and a front door. And still, nothing. The white BMW evaporates back into the single unconfirmed witness sighting it always was. One line in one report, never seen again. Every thread the system pulls at its absolute strongest comes apart in its hands. When you audit 2 full years of the most documented manhunt in the region, down to what is genuinely provably known about this person, the entire remainder is a single fact. He is left-handed. That is it. That is the audited sum. Everything else, the age, the build, the hair, the calm, the face, the hands, was authored by the suspect and fed to the cameras on purpose. The case file is not a portrait of a man. It is a portrait of a costume. And then he subtracts the last thing he has left to subtract. He stops. Robbery 16 is the final robbery. There are no 17. The profiler on record will insist that people like this do not simply walk away, that the compulsion does not just switch off. The question hangs there, laid out fairly and left open. Was it discipline? A man who always knew exactly when to disappear? Or did the dye pack destroy the one irreplaceable thing, the mask, and end the show by accident? Either way, the trap has closed from both sides now, and it is the cruelest kind of trap. The FBI cannot move forward because they have no identity, and they cannot wait for him out because he is never coming back. The only way to ever catch this man was to catch him in the middle of a robbery, and he has quietly retired from robbery forever. So, the case goes quiet. Months of quiet. Then years. When are they going to catch him? And what will be the consequences of that? August 2009. The first bank, a timer starts. Every Friday robbery after it, another timer. The nickname, the reward, the Facebook page, the dye pack, the dropped planner, the BMW that wasn't there, all of it happening inside a corridor of windows that are silently sliding shut one after another, and not one person on screen is reading the clock. And then, window by window, they close. The first robbery's deadline passes with no charge possible. Then the second. Then the third. 16 prosecution windows going dark down the timeline, like lights going out one by one along a corridor, until the last one closes and the corridor is black. The FBI gives its statement to the press. The case is closed, not solved. Closed. There is a difference, and the difference is the entire point of this story. Closed means there is nothing left to do, because there is nothing left that can be done. They may yet learn his name. The DNA still exists. Genealogy still exists. A deathbed letter is always possible, a confession, a relative who finally talks. Someday, someone may attach a name to that sample, but they can never catch him. No arrest, no charge, no trial, no cell. Even with a name in hand, even with a face and an address, there is no longer any door in the American legal system that opens onto consequence for this person. Identification without arrest, a name without a case. The title you clicked was never a boast. It is the literal, documented legal status of this case, and it just became true for every single minute you have been watching. And the costs are real, so we are going to name them. 16 tellers spent what one of them has called the most frightening 90 seconds of their lives, on camera, staring down a revolver hidden in an appointment book, so that this story could later be filed under the obscene word victimless. At least one of them still carries it. There was a copycat too, a man who borrowed the costume and the idea and tried it himself, and the system caught that one fast and handed him 9 years and more, which proves the machinery works exactly as designed. It catches bank robbers. It caught the imitator within a single case. It works perfectly on everyone except the one man who understood it well enough to feed it a fiction. The $20,000 reward will never be paid because the fine print required arrest and conviction, and both of those are now impossible forever. And the fan page is still there. The shirts are still sold. A man became folklore without ever once becoming a person. And notice what is missing from this story, the thing every other true crime story is built around. There is no chapter about who he was. No childhood, no grudge, no debt, no unraveling. We cannot tell you why he started or why he stopped, because to write that chapter you need a person, and there has never been a person here, only a performance. The empty space where the man should be is not a hole in this story. It is a story. Every other case in this lane ends with a name attached to a face attached to a motive. This one ends with a costume folded somewhere, unworn, and no one left to ask why he put it on in the first place. 16 robberies, 16 recordings, 1 dropped planner, 0 names. He did not beat the cameras. The cameras saw him perfectly every time. He did not beat the FBI, who out-resourced him 1,000 to 1. He beat the clock, and when the clock ran out, the rulebook itself signed his victory and filed it under closed. He is, as far as anyone knows, still out there, unchargeable. Maybe within driving distance of that first San Diego branch, an old man's face folded in a drawer somewhere, a costume that won. The man in our next story wore a costume too, but he used his to walk straight into Pablo Escobar's cartel. For 5 years, Robert Mazur lived as Bob Musella, a Tampa money launderer who didn't exist, wired with microphones across the table from professional killers. And then he invited them to his wedding. On October 8, 1988, cartel money men and BCCI bankers arrived in tuxedos to toast the groom and walked out in handcuffs before the cake was cut. If you thought this story was unbelievable, click here and watch the true story of the FBI agent who took down an entire cartel at his own wedding.